So I am going to talk a little bit about DMT, this reality, and maybe UFOs and aliens a little bit. So,
all right.
One of my good friends, I just got done talking with him, and he went on a little DMT trip. Now, this guy, he is, I would say, he probably he pays attention to some paranormal stuff and some UFOs. I don't know if he's a big believer in that kind of stuff. He's had experience with mushrooms and doing psychedelics in the past. So he's a veteran in psychedelics. He doesn't really pay attention to other people's trip logs. Like on YouTube, if you type in DMT experience or mushroom experience, you can get a whole bunch of testimonies of what people experienced during their trip. He doesn't pay attention to that kind of stuff. He's a carpenter, he's a salt of the earth kind of guy who just kind of likes his psychedelics. And he just happened to come across some DMT. And so I talked to him today about his DMT experience because I'm hyper curious about the substance. I've talked about it before on the show. Even a good friend of ours, Sir Seat Sitter, he is a psychonaut. He's been going in and out of this dimension and any other dimension using hallucinogens and trying to glean information. So I'm fascinated by his experiences too. But my friend said he smoked the stuff. He smoked the DMT, and within a few seconds, he said he started to see his hands glow. Like his hands were glowing, and everything, this reality that we live in, whatever he was seeing, whether it was the walls, the chair, the bed, it all became, the best analogy I could say, digitized, and much more like the Matrix. Like there was an underlying structure, blueprint, code to what he was seeing around him. And as he looked at an object, whether that was a chair or a dresser, he could see that it had a blueprint. But then there was also hieroglyphics or hieroglyphic-like symbols attached to each object. And he saw that this world, the reality that we are in, is engineered and constructed. You can call it a simulation, you can call it a matrix, but it does appear to be generated, at least from his perspective, a person on DMT. And this is not that different than what a lot of other people have experienced in the DMT realm and other psychedelics. Now, when he got over to the DMT realm, he didn't tell me that he communicated with anybody, any sort of entity. Machine elves are often recalled or talked about. He didn't encounter any machine elf or any singular kind of personality. But he did say he felt like a surrounding presence that was definitely aware of him. And he was aware of its presence. And he also realized that this presence is always there. That it's not just when you're smoking DMT, it is always there. And this is something, this feeling that he got stayed with him even when he came down off of that DMT trip. And when he would think about that experience, it would give him goosebumps. Like it would elicit some sort of physical reaction when thinking about what he experienced in that DMT realm. And so it was still provoking physical reactions with him. But when it comes to the DMT realm, like what he was describing is what we've heard from many other experiencers in the DMT realm, which is that we live in some sort of matrix, some sort of simulation. And I suspect the symbols, the hieroglyphic symbols that are attached, or not attached, but placed upon a tree. There's maybe a different symbol for the ground, a different symbol for a dresser. Those are variable names, something that can be referenced by the computer itself, so they know what to draw, what to construct. I suspect those are variables, if we're talking about this in a computer analogy here. And it seems as though DMT seems to break down the barriers of our brain. Like our brain, it seems like, is an attenuator. Naturally, us as spirits, as souls, as humans, we can absorb all the information, all the raw information from the matrix that we live in. But our brain attenuates this information into what we experience right here. Like I have an attenuator. I have an attenuator right next to me. I have a 100-watt guitar amp. And that thing is incredibly loud. It would shake the walls of this place if I cranked it up. But with an attenuator, I can still have some of the power, but I can manage the volume and the decibel level output to something that will not crack my hearing and annoy my wife and neighbors. That's what an attenuator does. And that's what our brain does with this reality, is it manages the information in a way that we can live our day-to-day life. When you use things like DMT or mushrooms, especially DMT, I think DMT completely removes all attenuation, and you get a raw network feed from the matrix or the simulation. And at that point in time, when you get that raw network feed, you become a super user of the matrix, but you don't know what you're doing. Like, hypothetically, Gretchen, if you just hopped on someone's computer, you don't really know the operating system, but you have admin access, you don't know any of the commands. Is it of any real use to you if you don't even know you're a super user?
Not really. You just drag everything to the trash can, see what happens, right?
Yeah. So if you instantaneously become a super user of a computer system, but you don't really know any of the commands and you're there just momentarily, you don't really know what to do. You don't even know you're a super user. You're putting it into a particular group that has admin level access. You don't know. So you dip in, you dip out, and you're like, oh, crap. We live in a matrix. I accidentally became an admin, but I really didn't do anything with it when I was there. My bad. And I think that's what happens with DMT. I think a lot of drugs will lower some of those barriers, just in different ways. They reduce the attenuation in different ways. Now, my friend, he had a UFO experience about 6 years ago. He was out camping with his then girlfriend, now wife, and they were both looking at this strange object in the sky. They were watching it for about 5 to 10 minutes, silently. They were both watching the same object, maybe a little apprehensive to talk about it because they didn't want to seem crazy, like, hey, do you see that UFO? But finally, he broke the ice and says, hey, do you see that thing? And she replied back, yes, I do see that. And then he asked, do you get the feeling that that object recognizes that we see it? And she said, yes. Yes, I do. They both got that feeling that the UFO was aware that those two humans down there camping could see it. Like it could sense the human's perception of its activity. Now, my friend said that feeling that he got while witnessing that UFO was the same feeling that he felt in the DMT realm when he felt that presence. The same kind of feeling. And so he felt as though there was some kind of connection between witnessing or being in the presence of a UFO and then being in the DMT realm. And I suspect that the DMT realm is the raw network feed that the occupants of the UFOs have direct access to. And that raw network feed is tied into your consciousness. So they basically are using Wireshark or some sort of eavesdropping, like whatever technology analogy you want to use. They're eavesdropping on your raw network feed continuously. You can't sense that because your brain is attenuating that. You're not aware that you're tapped in to a larger network. But the UFO occupants and pilots, they are all the time. So they are aware that you are aware of them. And so when people have interactions with these entities and they feel like they are under some sort of mind control, they say, oh, it's telepathy. No, they just got a raw network feed into your brain and can control you. They can make you docile. They can make you sleepy. They can make you safe to be around. So in case you freak out, you don't do as much damage as you would normally do if you had total faculty. And so that's basically the gist of his experience and my interpretation of what he experienced and the UFOs and all that. Now, I did pull a clip. There's a guy that is kind of making the rounds lately. His name is Anthony Peake. You can look him up. He is deep into DMT experiences. He is into near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, interactions with UFOs, and that we live in some sort of simulation. He's trying to put it all together, and I think he's getting ready to do a big talk where he's putting together these ideas. Not that far off from what we have been discussing, probably over the course of like 100 episodes. He's going to break it down and probably do it in the span of 45 minutes. If he can't do it, I will do it at some point in time, because I'll talk about it in like pure technological terms and draw diagrams with containers and network pathways and how this operates and super user groups and Linux groups, because that all makes sense to me of how this world, this reality, this realm works. I just would explain it in Linux terms using Kubernetes clusters and containers. That's the best way to make an analogy. But here he is. Here is a clip of him talking about DMT and what possibly that presence could be that people feel in the DMT realm.
This is opening the channels of communication between your everyday self, which is the part of you that's actually lives in linear time, exists within the Canoma, lives within the simulation, and doesn't perceive anything other than what the brain allows it to perceive. But there is another part of your consciousness that is also manifest in the brain, which I call the Damon. And the Damon is what many people would call their spirit guide, their higher self. Many terms used right through history. This is not a new concept. This is a, and in the book The Damon I discuss this in great detail, just how historical it is. But this entity is the immortal you. This is the you that's outside the simulation. This is the you that exists within the pleroma. Using an analogy, this is your game player. You're existing within a three-dimensional computer like analogous to a computer simulation of your life. Programmed within that is the outcome of every decision you make within that life. Your Damon has lived this life for you and accompanied its Edolon, different Edolons. Each Edolon is different, but each Damon is consistent. And each Edolon, when it's born, is born with no memories that it's lived before. It's what the ancient Greeks used to call amnesis. Okay, it's the idea you drink the waters of the Lethe. It washes your memories clean and you go back and you live your life again. So you live your life again. I use the analogy, imagine you're playing a third-person RPG game. Okay, when you switch the game on for the first time, your on-screen sprite, which is your on-screen entity, just is born, isn't it? And it's there in front of you, and you can move it and you can make it run up and down the corridors or do whatever you want. Imagine that entity on the screen has actually a level of independence. It has motivations and it learns as it goes along, but it only learns the information from the one game it plays. When you first start it, the game player, when you first start one of these games, you as the game player and you as the on-screen entity share that life. You don't know anything about the layout of the game. You don't know what rooms are dangerous, which ones aren't, which beings you encounter that are going to be dangerous to you or not. But what happens is, at some time or other, you're going to make a mistake in the game, and the Edolon, the on-screen sprite, dies. The game player then reboots the game and goes back to the start and starts the game again. But this time, the Damon, stroke game player, knows that there is a room you shouldn't go into or that person you should avoid. And what it does is it tries to guide subtly its Edolon to make certain decisions and do certain things. This is the voice in your head that guides you. This is the voice that says, don't do this. This is dangerous. You know, we all get it, that kind of inkling. And actually the word inkling is something from Old English that is exactly that. Mm-hmm. It's the voice in the head that guides you not to do things.
So that's his take on DMT, at least one DMT entity. I don't think, I haven't heard him talk about like the machine elves specifically. He's talking about that presence. Your higher self or your daemon in computer terms. Like, I work with a daemon that is usually just like a subroutine that will perform tasks automatically. It's always kind of running in the background. You can interface with the daemon if you know what the API is or how to send it commands. And that's exactly what Anthony is trying to do. He's got some pretty interesting, if not strange and perturbing ideas about how to directly communicate with your higher self and your daemon. This is the last clip I have, but Christian, I listened to this and this sounds, I don't want to use the word crazy, but we know throughout human history, medical science has taken extreme measures to test certain things. And that's what it sounds like this guy is proposing here. Fairly extreme measures in order to provoke a reaction from the hypothetical daemon that helps guide your life. So here it is.
That I believe that there is the daemon and the Edolon in the middle. Okay. But behind the daemon is something I call the uber daemon, which is the collective unconscious of the whole of humanity, Jungian collective unconscious. That contains all the memories of all human beings and all sentient beings. The daemon can draw into that information, most can in some occasions. Then you have the Edolon, which is the in-game sprite. But then you have something that I call the cacodemon. And the cacodemon is what Jung would call the shadow. Kako is from Greek kakos, which means bad. Okay, and I was going to call the Oberdaemon probably the kalos demon, which kalos is Greek for good. So you have the kalos demon and the cacodemon. Your life is a balance between this kind of negative, dark aspect, the kind of negativity that we all have, you know, that thing that drags you down.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the light and the dark. So it's almost coming down to almost Gnosticism and Manichaeism here. And myself and my associates, we're trying to build a model that can make this work. But on top of that, we need to also find techniques and methods whereby you can communicate with your own daemon. I'm already working on it. I think there are various ways this can be done. You can do it by deep hypnosis, different levels of hypnosis, because deep hypnotism, they know, for instance, very famous hypnotists have worked on this. There are levels that you can go down in terms of trance state. At a certain point, you change and a new entity is found. A new you comes out, and I think that's the daemon. So you can go down that way. But there's also methods whereby you can actually black out the visual fields of the dominant hemisphere and put the dominant hemisphere to sleep. If you do that, you create something new. Very, very radical, but another way you can actually communicate with the daemon is either to have your corpus callosum cut, which means you become a split brain patient, which is pretty extreme, or you can have something called a WADA. And the WADA test is WADA, and they put sodium amytal into your carotid artery, and it actually deadens your dominant hemisphere. And when your dominant hemisphere is dead, the daemon comes out. And these are all things I'm working on at the moment. So we are going to take this and we're going to run with this. and this will blow the roof off. It really will. I'm really, and I'm working with psychologists, I'm working with psychiatrists, I'm working with neurologists, neurochemists. There is a way to do this.
So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're trying to handicap you, like in experiment, like hypothetically, you submit to this procedure. They're trying to handicap the dominant hemisphere of your brain in order to provoke a reaction that the super user is forced to come in and take control and respond to the world. That's what it sounds like to me, whether it's by putting half your brain to sleep or not.
That's not how I heard it. I mean, I guess that's one interpretation. I was just thinking that like the dominant part of your brain is acting as the filter. And by disabling that or anesthetizing it or however you want to phrase it, I'm looking at this WADA test right now, that the non-dominant hemisphere of your brain loses its filter and thus is able to, I don't know, just have wider communication with reality and beyond, I suppose. I mean, I guess that's what they're getting at.
I suppose so.
That's a big concept to wrap my head around here in about 3 minutes.
To me, this is not far off. It sounds like they're trying to obviously manipulate our perception with these kinds of things, or reduce the influence of our brain, which is the attenuator to the DMT realm, in order to allow certain things to just come in naturally. But it also reminded me a little bit of some MK Ultra experiments where they're trying to break a person's personality in order to bring out a new one, to compartmentalize memories, functions, and actions. And it feels like that MK Ultra was going down a similar road for different reasons, but they were trying to break personalities in order to weaponize someone in order to make them do something that they would not remember. This is one aspect of the program. But with this, they're trying to turn off your brain in order to allow a pure filter or a pure data stream from the network in. And then you don't have to be, I guess, on DMT to access the DMT realm. That's what I'm getting out of it.
I guess I didn't pick up on that part. Maybe.
Maybe. See, this is like, I'm not familiar with this stuff either. But we're spitballing here.
That'd be interesting to say that like DMT is one way to disable the attenuator, but radical brain surgery is another. So
exactly, you pick which way is correct for you.
And tonight, live on the show, we're going to do both of them and see which way it goes.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. Yeah, my friend said that doing DMT and visiting that realm is definitely not for everyone. Not everyone can maybe handle it. If you think about it, your average person who doesn't consider or think about the fact that we could live in a simulation, or doesn't consider the nature of this reality, doesn't think about philosophical questions like that, might not do well when they're confronted with the fact that they are living in a simulation, and that the ethics and morals that we have constructed for ourselves are just that, invented, and that they might see it as an opportunity to go hog wild and do anything and everything that they want because, quote, nothing really matters. But it does. I think it does matter. I think the life that we live here in this realm does matter.
Well, I mean, I guess I've never, and this is not something I'm well read on, but I've never heard the association of nihilism with DMT trips, which is, if I understand what you're saying, is kind of
that's how my friend conveyed it to me. I've never been on a DMT trip, and neither have I. I have not heard that nihilism associated with it either. Maybe he was just hypothetically saying that people could take that away from it if they believe they live in a simulation at that point, or know that they live in a simulation. Then what's the point? We can do anything we want. It's all fake anyways. I wouldn't take that away from it. No,
that seems like a weird interpretation of it. I'm curious from a standpoint of just true experimentation. how well do people who do not how to best phrase this, people who don't fit in with society now or are constantly looking to push at the edges of society by demanding that, you know, you view them as they have, you know, their brightly colored hair,
Sure.
and they demand you adhere to their lifestyle and things like that. How would they respond to a widening or a removing of that attenuator through DMT or other methodologies? I wonder how their brain would deal with, in theory, the huge amount of information they'd be getting.
I'd like to know that too. A shock to the system. I'm not sure how well I would do with a trip to the DMT realm. I'd like to think I would be open to it. I have certain questions. I don't know if I would even be able to ask a question, or if it's just a receiving of information, or if it's just a feeling that I would be able to project or take back. I don't know. I'm open to it. I know Sir Seasitter, a.k.a. Abs in a Six Pack, he's kind of suggested maybe you shouldn't go down that path.
I don't think Chris has ever gone by Abs in a Six Pack. It's his show.
I'm promoting his show. You know, I like him. I like Chris.
Chris number 23. Abs in a Six Pack.
Yeah. But he was suggesting that maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't be opening yourself up to this. Now, he was doing it consistently. He was definitely a habitual user for a while, and that's maybe his takeaway. It's like, maybe I shouldn't have done it that much because it feels like there's something still lingering around me. That he built this connection to the other realm that was not easily severed. And maybe it was a little bit more difficult to live your normal day-to-day life here when you got to go to Subway and get your Subway sandwich. That probably.
Hey, I have a gift card for that.
I know you got a gift card, but you might not use that gift card if you went to the DMT realm and realize, what's this all for? Why?
Well, that's the weirdest thing. Last time I took a trip, I had $50 on my Subway gift card. Afterwards, $3.
Oh my God!
Who took those sandwiches?
Wow. So that's all I got on it. I will. I'll do some follow up with more clips from Anthony Peak.
No, I mean it's definitely an interesting subject. Yeah. To some of these for lack of a better term, the mind expanding things out there. There's a lot of stuff that we've only touched on, even just from the conspiratorial, or in the case of DMT, I guess, and I don't mean this in any sort of pejorative way, that it's very in vogue to discuss right now as a general substance and experience. So. But we've never really gone into the no pun intended, but the deeper aspects of it. So I think that would be well appreciated to keep digging.
Yeah, and especially with the UFO connection that my friend had, it makes a lot of sense because people who, when they encounter a landed UFO, oftentimes they will
take your pants off.
Well, they will oftentimes.
It's gonna happen.
They will have, one way or another, those pants are coming off. So just strip naked and approach the UFO. And if you do, sometimes you'll have a near-death experience. You will encounter visions and interactions and communications from dead loved ones. You'll do the whole near-death experience while you're in the presence of a UFO. And as I conveyed, I believe that the UFOs are able to tap into the background network, which is the DMT realm. You can call that the massive non-linear cloud computing operation, but they may travel. Their technology may allow them to traverse our dimension here by traveling through the realm of the dead and the spirit realm, if you will. And that their technology, when you're in the presence of it, it also bends it to where you can kind of step into the spirit world a little bit. So you just get a little taste of the afterlife until you step out of the presence of that UFO. It's all hypothetical right now, but that's why I'm curious to listen to Anthony Peak's talk on DMT and UFOs, which I'll check out. It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on and talk about some depressing stuff, I guess.
What?
You're out of touch.
Maybe.
I did want to point out that Anthony's clearly not a video game player, especially 30 years ago, because he was trying to coin the term cocodemon or cacodemon, whatever he was calling it. But that was one of the monsters in Doom. So when he said that, it took me out of his discussion immediately. Yeah, it was the one that flew. It was like a meatball with horns.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I don't know all the Doom monsters. I should know those.
Just remember that one.
I have a little bit. I'll do like some UFO news for people out there. As UFOs are becoming more and more mainstream, thanks to people like Tucker Carlson openly talking about this stuff. CNN even, Chris Cuomo openly talking about it, that there are more people out there who would talk about politics and mainstream culture and the economy. Now they're talking about UFOs. And that one such outlet is the Daily Caller. Now, Daily Caller, I believe, was run or partially owned by Tucker Carlson.
I think he founded it, but that was a long time ago. I don't know if he's still involved or not.
Yeah. And so the headline here that we need to be aware of is stop believing global governments will ever reveal their UFO UAP data. It ain't going to happen in 2024.
Whoa!
And it's not, but wait, I thought it's going to be just 2 weeks away. They're going to have more stuff soon.
I don't know.
We come in peace.
A lot of people are hoping for government disclosure. Like they're hoping from, I don't know what people picture, but it's probably something like from, Independence Day, where the president comes out and says, yes, there are aliens and we do have some crash retrieval programs. We reverse engineer some stuff. There's some dead bodies, but that's all we know. I just told you that. Now you know as much as I do. I think that's what they're figuring would happen.
By the way, in that movie, whose bright idea was it to fly a helicopter up to the spaceship and flash lights in its windows in an aggressive pattern?
Oh, that's just some corporal came up with that idea.
Yeah. Oh, let's go there and take a pot shot at it.
Yeah.
I can fly. I'm pilot.
That's always bothered me that was their. We're going to go communicate with the aliens by being very aggressive and throwing rocks.
Welcome to Earth.
Yes, flashing some lights at it, which would piss anybody off. Mm-hmm. No one wants to be blinded by
showed
strobe
up
lights.
At your house. Hey, we got new neighbors. Went over and just started flashing lights in your windows.
Yes, someone knocks on your door. Someone knocks on your door, and then all of a sudden starts like flashing like lights through the windows and all that stuff in weird sequences. It's gonna piss you off. Like, stop. You're annoying me. Yeah, then you blow them up too if you could. Here's the article here. If we learn anything from 2023, it's that we need to stop trusting global government leaders and lawmakers.
Learn that now, huh?
When they tell us they're working on UFO UAP disclosure. For every year, as long as most of us can remember, the U.S. government has promised some type of conclusive UFO UAP disclosure. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's a true statement.
Yeah, read that again.
Every year, for as long as most of us can remember, the U.S. government has promised some type of conclusive UFO UAP disclosure.
I would say for the last 3 to 4.
Yes. Maybe did a 5-year-old write this?
Maybe. I don't remember 5 years ago.
Because I
cut my brain in half.
I think I'm 46 now. And I remember a good chunk of my life where the government
cut your leg and count the rings.
The government wasn't addressing any of this for the majority of my life. They were actively ignoring it.
No, it's only been recently that they've even made an acknowledgement of it, and we're seeing that kind of across the board in a very slow drip manner.
I'm going to take a shit.
Yes,
no, that was not there.
not that kind of thing. No,
not that kind of disclosure.
No. So I'll read this again. Carry on. Every year, for as long as most of us can remember, the U.S. government has promised some type of conclusive UFO UAP disclosure. We know global governments have been collecting data on unidentified phenomenon for more than 80 years, but in all this time, the general public has never been given a hint of explanations as to what these things are. What if they were to tell us that these UFOs have a complete data tap into the nonlinear cloud that can be accessed because it's tapped directly into you, and the only way you can do it is if you do massive amounts of drugs? Is the government going to come out and tell us that? Probably not.
Well, can I use that for Bitcoin mining? Because if so, I'm on board.
Maybe if you could be a node, you want to turn your brain into a Bitcoin mining node?
No, I want to turn everyone else into a node.
Oh, I see. You want to hijack everyone else's brain power to turn them into Bitcoin miners. All right.
Yeah. Look at all the Bitcoin I got.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, Hulk will help.
This past year, 2023, that was supposed to change with lawmakers like Republican Tennessee Rep. Tim Burchett and Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer seemingly aligned on the need for the Pentagon to release information to the American taxpayer, is that they're funding them to collect UFOs. But when the final draft of the National Defense Authorization Act hit headlines, all the promises and basically every single person perpetrating UFO conspiracy was ignored. Not only is the government refusing to release information, but they made a rule where the president can literally classify anything he wants about those things whizzing around in our skies. So, okay, we'll blame Joe Biden.
Did they actually describe this as whizzing around?
They did. It's, quote, things whizzing around our skies.
I don't think I've ever heard it describe a UFO as whizzing.
No, never mind.
It's called the Omicron.
Oh, that's what it is.
The Omicron whizzes around. Yeah, okay.
That's Omicron. I was president. I fly.
So how's this all wind up? I'll read down just last few paragraphs here. In December, right after the government absolutely screwed us on the UFO disclosure,
What?
they had the audacity.
Oh, because they took it out of the
because they took it out of the NDA.
Yeah.
They had the audacity to push a video of a UFO allegedly flying over President Joe Biden while he traveled in Air Force One to Los Angeles. I talked about that.
Not
Who's they,
joke.
though? I don't think they published anything.
It was just on Twitter. That's where I saw it. Like I don't know who's responsible for it. It was just on Twitter. You know?
Thank you, Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper
It was
released it.
Dr. Pepper doing that.
He's the head of the UFO community.
That's right. I'm in charge.
He's taking over for Dr. Kirkpatrick. Dr. Pepper's taking over. It goes on to say,
Dr. Kirkpatrick didn't care.
It goes on to say here, in my opinion, this is the most laughably staged story of the year. Apparently, we're supposed to believe that a live stream video caught 3 different UFOs hovering around the most protected aircraft in the world back in October, and no one noticed until December? How effing stupid do you think we are? My official response to all things UFOs in 2024 will be, okay, bud. That's what he's saying.
Say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't you have Jordan Peterson saying exactly that?
I have something similar. Not exactly that.
Okay, buddy.
There you go.
Yeah. My official response to all things UFO in 2024 will be,
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, perfect.
with so much sarcasm that you could butter your bread with it.
You know damn well what you're doing, mister, and shame on you.
Even if a Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom rips his face off and reveals himself to be a lizard person, I still won't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an extreme position to take there.
It certainly is. Yeah. Why would anyone believe the same lie told more than 80 years? Surely we're better than that, fam. Or perhaps all these things are just Chinese spy balloons.
Balloon.
Scary balloons.
Yeah. Well, take that. Shove that up your crack pipe crawl thing.
Not so fast there, mister.
That's the most ineffective comeback I've ever heard.
Not so fast there, mister.
Not so fast there, mister. Okay, buddy.
Well,
okay,
he also kind
buddy.
of, because that's Tim Pool, isn't it?
Yes, it is Tim Pool.
He like pauses slightly halfway through, like he's not
Not
sure
so
of himself.
fast there, mister.
Not so fast there, mister. He didn't say it like Alex Jones.
You know damn well what you're doing, mister, and shame on you.
Yeah. Alex Jones sounds like an overweight elementary school teacher. A woman. Overweight woman elementary school teacher. But Tim Pool just sounds like a little nerf.
Not so fast there, mister.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are taking this position that no matter what the government says about UFOs, that they are not going to believe it because, quite frankly, the government doesn't have a very good track record with being honest with the American people or the world in general. So if there is some sort of official statement released by the DOD and the Pentagon about UFOs, is it to be believed? Either way, I suspect not. And that any sort of disclosure at this point will have to be done by the public. It'll have to be done by scientists. It'll have to be done by insiders who are blowing the whistle. It's not going to come from official channels. I don't think so.
I'm still holding out for bleep bloop landing in the Super Bowl, the halftime show.
Because so Joe Biden, he's technically president right now, and
as far as we know, he's still doing something.
And they're saying, well, the president can classify anything he wants related to UAP, or he can declassify stuff. He can come out. He can form any sort of
unless he's Trump, because then Trump can't do that.
Yeah, Trump can't do that. Biden can do whatever he wants. Biden, he could say, listen, I'm going to form a blue ribbon panel in order to address the UFO disclosure concerns. But in this article by the Daily Caller, they're saying, no, the president can classify anything he wants. Well, let's remember that John Podesta is part of Joe Biden's team. He's like his green energy czar. And John Podesta is a huge UFO buff. He was pushing Hillary Clinton for disclosure, really getting her to talk about UFOs and UAPs on talk shows. And so I would imagine if he's got the ear of the president, he would be urging President Biden to declassify, get this out, do this now before the Chinese do it, or the Russians.
Ooh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. What if the widespread mainstream disclosure came from another government?
Well, at that point in time, they take the narrative.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they want to get out in front of that? You're right. But I'm just thinking, I'd never considered that possibility, that the disclosure we're always thinking is going to come from the U.S. government. But why couldn't it come from, Russia or China or Japan or
Mexico?
Well, they're trying, but
yeah,
they've just got those beef jerky mummies down there.
Well, it's something. It's more than what we're showing up here. We have testimony, and maybe some metal fragments. Other than that, not much. There's videos that can be debunked. There's nothing absolutely 100% conclusive that everyone can say, okay, this is legit. Mm-hmm. We don't have any of that stuff. So, not unless in the back channels, they're talking to each other, the major government saying, we can't release this. You guys aren't going to release this because you would have to show your hand at that point. And no one is really willing to show their hand of like how far they're willing to take the disclosure. How much technology have they reverse engineered? How much technology have they captured? I don't think they want to show those hands just yet. And we're not in the final game yet. Maybe in the final war, some of those cards will have to be played. But I don't think we're there yet to where these sides are breaking out their wonder weapons.